Thanks for the slide. So I'm going to talk to you about a food safety project that we're currently exploring with FDA, and then my colleague from FDA, who is actually on detail, Chad Nelson, is going to tell you a little bit more about some of the projects or potential approaches that we're exploring. So we've been talking to FDA for a while about ways we could potentially partner on food safety. And this would be a new area for Reagan-Udall because our focus has largely been on drug safety. So it's nice to be branching out into other areas that are important to the agency. So we're looking at ways that RUF can help coordinate between FDA, various members of the food industry, from producers to manufacturers, growers, all across the food production spectrum, and as well as the larger academic research community, to identify areas of common need and then figure out how we can bring everyone to the table and actually start to chip away at some of those challenges. And I'll tell you a little bit more about our approach in future slides, but it's the benefits of public-private partnerships here in terms of pooling expertise and leveraging resources and making sure that knowledge gained is placed in the public domain to help advance needs of FDA as well as other stakeholders. So we have a project team that's been looking at this, and it includes me, various members of the Reagan-Udall board, as well as several staff at FDA, including Chad. And our approach has been to do stakeholder mapping, figuring out who all is in this area, what are ongoing activities in food safety research, where are there gaps in knowledge, where are there areas where better coordination of activities would help achieve goals faster. So we've developed a needs assessment survey, and Chad and I are sending that out now, as well as conducting consultations with key stakeholders, get a feel for where they see the needs are, what their research priorities are, and how we can find commonalities there. We'll take all that feedback, develop, we have actually already developed a proposal, which Chad will be talking about, and we're sort of testing that out on the various stakeholders to see how they feel about the ideas and how we can better refine that. And so we'll be doing that over the summer, the refining, picking out a few areas, a few specific projects that would really benefit from a public-private partnership, and then figuring out feasibility, a funding model, securing partners, and then hopefully initiating a project later this year or early in 2017. So we've identified a few possible starting points, and again, we're testing this out with various stakeholders in our consultations. We could start with a small short-term pilot project on a very specific need. We could create something like a food safety innovation consortium, which Chad's going to tell you a little bit more about that concept, that would function similarly to IMEDS as a home base for coordinating research needs and a research agenda in this area. And another sort of unique way to go about this is food safety challenges, which FDA has conducted one, and Chad's going to tell you about that, and maybe ways that Reagan-Udall and FDA could work together to get new exciting challenges out there and move the bar on food safety. So with that, I will turn it over to Chad.
Thank you very much, Nancy. My name is Chad Nelson. I am a management and program analyst at the Food and Drug Administration. I work in the Office of Foods and Veterinary Medicine, which means currently I work for Mike Taylor. And unfortunately, Mike Taylor is actually leaving. Today is his last day. And we actually have a new incoming Deputy Commissioner for Foods and Veterinary Medicine, Steve Ostroff, who many of you know as the acting commissioner, and previous to that, the chief scientist for FDA. So we see that as a seamless passing of the baton in the foods program, so that we're really excited about Steve taking over. So primarily what I do in my day job at FDA is I work for the Science and Research Steering Committee as a project manager. So that essentially entails coordinating research across the major operatives within the Foods and Vet Med program. That includes the Center for Food Safety and Applied Nutrition, the Center for Veterinary Medicine, and the Office of Regulatory Affairs, and the Center for the National Center for Toxicological Research. So we help to coordinate a lot of the research efforts that are ongoing within the agency in the Foods and Vet Med program, and with a lot of the touch points with other federal agencies and other stakeholders like USDA, CDC, et cetera. So as Nancy mentioned, I've been actually on detail with the Reagan-Udall Foundation for the past 3 months in trying to kickstart something that I think put forth as a proposal to the board about a little over a year ago for this new food safety project. And as she mentioned, a lot of things that have been done for Reagan-Udall, it's been on the drug side, and obviously the big F in FDA stands for food. So we're very excited about kickstarting this initiative with Reagan-Udall Foundation to get some of the food safety questions, priorities, projects started here. So what we put forth was essentially a food safety innovation consortium concept or idea, and that entails a needed framework or collaborative multi-sector, multidisciplinary partnership to build a coordinated food safety research agenda. And a number of those project goals would include identifying and aligning food safety priorities between FDA and external stakeholders like industry, academia, et cetera, and other federal agencies, as I mentioned, solve shared food safety challenges, pool expertise and resources from various sectors and disciplines, facilitate coordination between FDA, industry, and the larger research community and the public to complement ongoing efforts and initiate new areas of research. Obviously, as I mentioned, we have a fairly large kind of research enterprise within the agency, but we know that we can't do everything. And we know that there's a huge wealth of information and expertise and resources out there that we can leverage and hopefully come to some commonalities in terms of common goals and benefits. And also to stimulate this innovative food safety research, so stimulating kind of revolutionary, innovative technologies that would help to really take some leaps forward in food safety. So one of the key areas that we've identified, and this was kind of part and parcel of the Food Safety Innovation Consortium proposal that we had put forth about a year ago, was looking at rapid methods for detection and verification of foodborne hazards. And a lot of, about a couple of years ago, we had some very active engagements with industry and some initial discussions about what could we do kind of together in this space, and advancing research and development into more rapid, sensitive, and specific methods to detect, identify, and quantify a variety of microbial and chemical hazards was something that kind of came to the forefront as something that would be beneficial for us and for a number of external stakeholders as well. So looking at things like Listeria, Salmonella, E. coli, O157H7, intentional adulterants, allergens, heavy metals, et cetera. And obviously the development of these more rapid methods would support broader food safety and feed into things like our strategic plans and the Food Safety Modernization Act, which many of you know about as the kind of 21st century framework for food safety that we're working on. So we actually put forth the proposal, and Nancy and I worked together to kind of, modify that, kind of slant it a little bit in terms of a broad perspective. And that actually is posted on the Reagan-Udall Foundation website currently. And noting that this was kind of a key priority area, and I'm going to go into this in the next few slides, was actually in one way that we determined that we could potentially leverage outside innovation and expertise was actually running what was called a food safety challenge. And I'll talk to you a little bit about that. And one of the main reasons why we're talking about this is actually, as Nancy mentioned, one of the possible mechanisms that we can actually partner with industry on in terms of advancing food safety and food safety research and innovation. So about 2 years ago, we kind of dove off the deep end in developing a challenge of our own. This is the first time the agency actually ran a challenge under the America Competes Authority. And the America Competes Authority allows agencies from a broad perspective to run these X-Prize type challenges. So you hear about, all the challenges that are run in the space of, space flight and space challenges, 100 mile per gallon car. So we did actually something like akin to that on the food safety side. So knowing that advancing breakthroughs in foodborne pathogen detection was something that we have very high on our list of challenges and things to do, we called upon scientists, academics, entrepreneurs, and innovators from all disciplines to submit concepts applying novel and or advanced methodologies to foster revolutionary improvements in foodborne pathogen detection. And specifically, we sought cutting-edge techniques to achieve significant improvements in the speed of our detection methods for salmonella with identification to the subtype and serovar level in minimally processed fresh produce. So a lot of the outbreaks that happen or occur with salmonella, fresh produce, so this is certainly one of the things that's been on the top of our list to try to tackle. And just to kind of give you a sense of the time frame that we ran this in, within less than a year, we actually initiated a challenge by doing the call for action with open submissions. We announced finalists in a few months. We actually had them go through what was called a field accelerator phase, where we actually had the finalists that were selected work with subject matter experts in FDA to refine their concepts or their ideas in this space and to better suit our needs. We actually had an in-person boot camp with them to meet with our subject matter experts. They came back to FDA and actually presented those refined concepts, and then we announced winners, as I mentioned, kind of within a less than a year time frame, from September of 2014 to July of 2015. And we actually identified 2 winning solutions, a grand prize winner and a runner-up winner. And this is actually, the mechanism allowed us to kind of reach out to things that we would not have normally necessarily known about. Purdue University actually came forth with a technology for physically concentrating salmonella to detectable levels using automated filtration, which essentially allows us to kind of, or would allow us to eliminate a major step in pathogen enrichment or pathogen detection, where you actually have to enrich the pathogens for at least 24 to 48 hours, but they can actually concentrate these samples down in 2 to 3 hours. And the runner-up winner actually had a detection technology that could essentially be used as a screening technology at, for example, ports of entry. So we're actually working currently with these 2, the Purdue University and Pronucleotine, to get their technologies and to refine them into commercial models and advances in their prototypes to actually get them into FDA testing laboratories currently. And we actually received a lot of media, mass media, trade press coverage with regards to this. This was viewed as something that was very positive for us. So a number of trades followed the challenge from start to finish, reflecting the industry's interest in FDA's kind of moving into this space and looking at outside innovators to address the food safety problems that we have, and the commitment that we have to scientific innovation. So as Nancy mentioned, we've actually been doing a lot of these initial consultations, outreach to a number of stakeholders, including our industry stakeholders. Pam Bailey, who's the president and CEO of GMA, the Grocery Manufacturers Association, which represents a very large sector of the industry, is actually sitting on the Reagan-Udall Foundation board, which we see as a very advantageous thing for us. And we've had some initial consultations with them in terms of our space and how to build on some of the successes and some of the things that we're building on to leverage and partner with them and build a sustainable food safety model or program as we move forward. So, from a broad perspective, we view these as the potential outcomes of what, leveraging, partnering, having common goals and common benefits could actually do for certainly FDA as the agency, and from the broader food safety community, is reducing foodborne illness, having more accurate identification of sources of contamination, quicker removal of contaminated products from the marketplace, fewer unnecessary recalls, focus limited resources on the highest potential risks, better understand high-risk foods and food pathogen pairs, better ability to anticipate emerging hazards, better information to guide strategic investments in regulatory science and review, and improved ability to keep pace with new food technologies and expanding array of foods in the marketplace. So we view this, kind of partnership endeavor, new endeavor that we're initiating with Reagan-Udall Foundation as something that, we're very enthusiastic with. We know that a lot of benefits can actually happen on our side if we really kind of leverage and partner with a number of external stakeholders in this space in building these public-private partnerships. So I think we're at the very beginning of the journey. So we're kind of getting the lay of the land, as Nancy said, in terms of developing what we really want to tackle. Once we kind of do all of that kind of initial work, we're going to move forward with what we feel and what external stakeholders feel is kind of the best positive path forward. And we look forward to having some benefits and meeting a number of these goals as we move forward into the future.
Hey, Chad, sorry, I don't want to push you against the wall. No, one thing I forgot to mention earlier is what we've heard in some of the initial, no, you can stay here for questions, okay. From initial stakeholder consultations is that a lot of people are just interested in being able to interact with FDA more and better understanding their research priorities, what work they have going on, and how better understanding that could influence and inform their research to help further FDA. So I think a big role for Reagan-Udall there is in increasing communication and transparency between external stakeholders and FDA. So that's actually what we heard, what we've been hearing would be a major benefit for this, sort of regardless of what the actual science is, but just actually better communication. So any questions? And I think we do have a runner with a mic for audience questions, and we have a floating microphone at the board table. So. Oh, Rich.
I'm just curious. I thought the challenge program was terrific, and I don't know if you're going to be able to continue it, but it seems like a really great way to get really innovative solutions developed. But my question is whether any of the solutions have yet been implemented, or is there a plan to implement them? So you had two interesting detection methods that were the result of the challenge program. Are they actually scalable and feasible for implementation in actual real-world use?
Yeah, we're actually looking at developing and continue to develop the technologies with the two winners, Purdue University and Pronucleotine. So Purdue University actually is continuing to refine their model so that they can actually commercialize it and build it from a laboratory scale model into commercial technology or a platform that can actually be put into multiple laboratories. So we actually are working with them and hope to actually by the end of the summer get their system into a number of FDA laboratories for initial testing. In Pronucleotine, we're currently working out some of the logistics with actually getting their technology also into some of the ports of entry type uses that we feel that for screening. So yes, we are continuing to work with those two companies, those two entities in actually advancing those technologies.
I'm a little biased. I really like the challenge idea too, even though I'm trying to stay neutral in the consultations and not push that too hard. But I think there are a lot of benefits so FDA did the challenge on their own, but there are a lot of benefits for Reagan-Udall getting involved too in terms of facilitating some of the interactions with external stakeholders, particularly industry.
Yeah, I think initially when we had ideas about the challenge, we thought we could potentially involve industry with like, for example, subject matter experts, input. So we got some initial consultations with industry in that regard, but when we actually dove off and actually initiated the challenge, we were limited in actually doing it kind of on our own. And not partnering directly with industry or regulated industry. Obviously, we have a lot of the things that we're, certainly have to be careful with in terms of partner with industry. But certainly having Reagan-Udall potentially act as the third-party intermediary so that we can actually build this public-private partnership, I think is something that we will be looking forward to actually building with them. Certainly, prize pool, things like that could potentially be garnered from pooling FDA resources as well as lots of other external stakeholder resources as well. So that could be a potential mechanism for building large prizes to attract lots of solvers to lots of different types of challenges that we have.
All right, I don't see any other questions, so we'll move on to expanded access.